Security guard teaches ballet to millionaire's disabled son. But when he finds out, he does the unthinkable. Marcus Wilson watched for the 10th time that day as his boss hurried through the main hall of the mansion in Los Angeles, loudly talking on the phone about numbers and contracts, while his 8-year-old son Ethan remained alone in his wheelchair by the window. The boy moved his arms delicately along with a ballet video on his tablet, his eyes shining in a way his father never noticed. That's when businessman Richard Blackwell abruptly stopped in front of the security guard, phone still pressed to his ear. "Marcus, has the physical therapist arrived yet? Ethan needs to do his exercises, but I have a meeting in 15 minutes. She hasn't arrived yet, Mr. Blackwell, but I can stay with Ethan until she gets here," replied Marcus, adjusting his impeccable navy blue uniform. Richard nodded without even glancing at his son and headed toward his office, leaving behind only the sound of his rapid words about international investments. Marcus sighed softly. He'd worked in that house for 2 years and witnessed the same scene daily, a father so busy building financial empires that he forgot to build a relationship with his own son. Ethan looked up from his tablet and smiled at the security guard. "Uncle Marcus, do you think I could ever do that one day?" the boy asked, pointing to the screen where a ballerina performed a grand jeté. Marcus's heart clenched. That innocent question carried so much hope and yet so much sadness. "Of course you could, Ethan. Why do you want to dance?" "Because when I watch the dancers, they look like they're flying. And I really want to fly too, even if it's just a little." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. That boy carried a purity the adult world had lost long ago, especially his father's world. "You know, Ethan, flying isn't just about your feet leaving the ground. Flying is about what you feel right here," Marcus said, gently touching the boy's chest. Ethan's eyes lit up. "Do you know about dance, Uncle Marcus?" The security guard hesitated. There were parts of his life he kept locked away, memories of a time when he too had dreamed of flying across the stage. "A little. When I was young, Well, that's a story for another day." Just then, the nurse Betty arrived in a hurry, carrying her bag of physical therapy equipment. "Sorry I'm late, Marcus. The traffic on Wilshire Boulevard was impossible." Betty was a woman in her early 50s, her graying hair always tied in a bun, with a maternal warmth that had won Ethan over from day one. She immediately noticed the new sparkle in the boy's eyes. "So, my angel, how are you today?" "Aunt Betty," Uncle Marcus said, "I can fly by dancing." The nurse glanced at Marcus curiously. "Oh, what else did you two talk about? What else did?" Before Marcus could answer, Ethan was already excitedly telling her about the ballet videos and his dreams of dancing. Betty listened attentively, but also watched the security guard's reactions. He seemed to know more about the subject than he let on. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, back to the story. 2 weeks passed, and the routine remained the same. Richard left early and returned late, always occupied with calls and meetings. Ethan spent his days between physical therapy sessions, private tutoring, and long stretches alone watching dance videos. Marcus noticed the boy growing sadder by the day. One especially quiet afternoon, he found Ethan crying softly in the living room. "What's wrong, champ?" "Nothing, Uncle Marcus. It's just that sometimes I feel so alone. Dad is always busy, Mum traveled to London again, and I'm just stuck here watching other people live." Those words cut through Marcus Wilson's heart like a blade. Jennifer Blackwell, Ethan's mother, was an international lawyer who spent more time abroad than at home. The boy was surrounded by staff but starved for genuine affection. "Ethan, can I tell you a secret?" The boy's eyes widened. "When I was your age, I felt very alone too. My parents worked all the time, and I spent hours making up games by myself. But you know what saved me?" "What?" "Dance. I discovered that when I danced, I was never truly alone. The music kept me company, and my body told stories words couldn't." Ethan leaned closer to the chair, his eyes bright again. "You really danced, Uncle Marcus?" Marcus glanced around, making sure they were alone. "I did. Classical ballet. I trained for 15 years before life changed my plans." Can you teach me? The question struck like lightning. Marcus knew he was treading dangerous ground. Richard Blackwell was a traditional man with old-fashioned ideas about what boys should and shouldn't do. But looking at that hopeful little face, he couldn't say no. Well, maybe we can try some basic exercises. But it has to be our secret, okay? I promise, Ethan exclaimed, clapping his hands. And so began a secret routine that would change everyone's life in that house. Every afternoon, when Richard was in meetings and Betty had finished her physical therapy, Marcus and Ethan met in the living room. The security guard had studied ballet from age 7 to 22, dreaming of one day performing in the country's grand theaters. A knee injury and the urgent need to support his family had forced a change in plans, but his passion remained intact. They started with simple posture and arm movements. Marcus showed how port de bras could be done from the chair, adapting classical positions to Ethan's reality. Imagine your arms are swan wings, Ethan. They should float through the air as if water were holding them up. The boy followed each instruction with impressive dedication. His hands, which once only held a tablet, now glided through the air with a natural grace that even surprised Marcus. Like this, Uncle Marcus. Perfect. You have a natural talent, you know. For the first time in a long while, Ethan smiled for real. Not a polite smile to please adults, but a pure expression of happiness. The third week brought an unexpected turn. Betty arrived earlier than usual and found Marcus and Ethan in the middle of an impromptu session. The security guard was demonstrating an adapted arabesque when the nurse appeared in the doorway. Both froze. "Betty, I can explain," Marcus began, but the nurse said nothing. She just watched for a few minutes, seeing Ethan laugh as he tried to mimic the movements. The boy's genuine joy was undeniable. "How long has this been going on?" she finally asked. 3 weeks, Marcus admitted. "I know I should have asked permission, but you saw it was helping him, didn't you?" Marcus nodded, expecting a scolding or even a threat to tell Richard. "Betty, Ethan tried to explain. "Relax, sweetheart. I won't tell a soul." The relief on both their faces was clear. "Actually," the nurse continued, "I wanted to thank you. Ethan's been happier, eating better, sleeping better. Whatever you're doing, it's working." She stepped closer to Marcus. "You have dance training?" "I do. Classical ballet. I was part of the Lincoln Center Corps for 2 years before my injury." Betty nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And have you adapted the exercises for Ethan's condition?" "Yes. Ballet isn't just about the legs. There's immense beauty in the arm work, the expression, the connection with the music. May I watch a class?" Ethan clapped his hands with joy. "Of course, Aunt Betty. Uncle Marcus is the best teacher in the world." And so Betty became the third person to know the secret. She was impressed by Marcus's patience and Ethan's progress. The boy had developed motor coordination beyond what traditional physical therapy had achieved. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. A month later, the routine was set. Ethan eagerly awaited ballet classes, which had become the highlight of his days. Marcus brought a small stereo and began working with real classical music. "Today, we'll learn about musical timing, Ethan. Every movement has its right moment." Marcus played a Chopin waltz and demonstrated how the arms should follow the rhythm. Ethan absorbed every detail, every nuance. "Uncle Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you stop dancing? You're so good." The question hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. It was a wound he'd buried long ago, but still ached. "Life sometimes forces us to make hard choices, Ethan. I got hurt just as I was starting to succeed. Then I had to work to support my family." "Do you miss it?" Marcus stopped the music and sat beside Ethan's chair. "Every day, but you know what I've found? Sometimes we rediscover our passion in a different way. Teaching you reminded me why I love dancing so much." Ethan reached out and touched Marcus's arm. "You're my hero, Uncle Marcus." Just then they heard footsteps approaching. It was Richard, home early from his meeting. Quickly, Marcus turned off the music and Ethan grabbed his tablet, pretending to watch educational videos. "How was your day, son?" Richard asked, barely waiting for an answer as he checked his phone. "It was good, Dad. I did physical therapy and studied. Great. Marcus, I need you to stay late tonight. I have an important video conference with investors from Japan at 9. No problem, Mr. Blackwell. Richard headed to his office and Ethan sighed sadly. He didn't even ask what I studied today. Your father works hard to give you a good life, Ethan. But I'd rather have fewer things and more time with him. That simple remark held wisdom many adults take decades to understand. From that night on, Marcus began noticing more about the family dynamic. Richard truly loved his son, but had built a wall of work and responsibilities that kept him from showing affection. Jennifer called daily from London, but conversations were always rushed between appointments. Ethan lived in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury but starved for genuine attention. 2 weeks later, something happened that would change everything. It was a rainy Thursday and Marcus had arrived early for his shift. He found Ethan alone in the living room, crying softly. "What's wrong, champ?" "Today's my birthday, Uncle Marcus. I'm turning 9. Marcus felt his blood run cold. "Where is everyone?" "Your family." Dad forgot. He rushed out this morning talking about a crisis at the company. Mom called, but she was at the airport and said she'd call later. Marcus's heart shattered. How could parents forget their own child's birthday? "Didn't Betty come today?" "She had a family emergency. Aunt Margaret said she'd bake a cake this afternoon, but it's not the same." Margaret was the housekeeper, a 60-year-old woman who had taken care of the house for decades. She was affectionate with Ethan, but had her own responsibilities. Marcus made an impulsive decision. "Ethan, how about we put on a special performance today? A birthday choreography." The boy's eyes lit up for the first time that day. "Really? Really? But it'll be our biggest production yet." They spent the entire morning rehearsing. Marcus created a special routine, blending adapted classical movements with contemporary music. Ethan was radiant, absorbing every step with a dedication that moved his makeshift teacher. "Now let's work on the grand finale. Imagine you're flying above the clouds, Ethan. Your arms are your wings." The boy closed his eyes and surrendered completely to the movement. It was impossible not to be moved, seeing that child find freedom through dance. Margaret appeared at the door carrying a simple cake with 9 candles. "Oh my goodness, how beautiful! Ethan, you're dancing." "Aunt Margaret, Uncle Marcus taught me." The housekeeper set the cake down and stepped closer, her eyes misty. "In 40 years working in this house, I've never seen the boy so happy. You won't tell my dad, will you, Aunt Margaret?" The woman hesitated. She knew Richard's temperament and his conservative views well. "Let's keep our secret for now, my dear, but now let's sing Happy Birthday." They sang together, and Ethan blew out the candles with a smile that lit up the whole room. It was a simple birthday, but full of genuine love. That afternoon, when Richard finally came home, he carried a bag of expensive toys. "Sorry, son, there was an emergency, but I brought your gifts." Ethan thanked him politely, but Marcus noticed the spark in his eyes had dimmed. Richard didn't mention the birthday until the housekeeper reminded him. "Oh, right. Happy birthday, Ethan. You're such a big boy now." A quick hug, some expensive presents, and Richard was back to his work calls. That night, when everyone had gone to bed, Marcus found Ethan still awake, staring out the window. "Can't sleep." "Uncle Marcus, do you think my dad loves me?" The question felt like a dagger. How do you answer that to a 9-year-old? "Of course he loves you, Ethan. Sometimes adults struggle to show their feelings." "But you show it. Aunt Betty shows it. Aunt Margaret shows it. Why can't he?" Marcus had no answer. He sat by Ethan's bed. "You know what I've learned from dancing? That everyone has their own rhythm. Your dad might still be learning how to dance the dance of fatherly love. Do you think he'll ever learn? I'm sure he will. But deep down, Marcus had his doubts. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now moving on, the following weeks brought a new dynamic. Ethan was visibly more confident, more articulate. Ballet classes had awakened in him a body awareness and self-esteem that reflected in every aspect of his life. Betty remarked to Marcus about the positive changes. His progress is amazing. His motor skills have improved so much. But what strikes me most is the emotional shift. Ballet teaches discipline, focus, and self-expression. For Ethan, I think it became a way to communicate feelings he couldn't put into words. Have you thought about suggesting to Mr. Blackwell that Ethan take official lessons? Marcus laughed bitterly. Betty, you know Richard. You know... He barely has time to talk to his own son. Imagine suggesting the boy take ballet, but the results are undeniable. For us, yes. For him, Ethan is just better behaved. He doesn't even notice the real transformation. It was true. Richard noticed his son was calmer, but attributed it to the medications and physical therapy. He didn't see the spark in Ethan's eyes or the new confidence in his movements. One day, something unexpected happened. Jennifer Blackwell returned from London unannounced. She arrived in the morning, still holding her bags, wanting to surprise the family. Richard was in an emergency meeting, and she found only Ethan and Marcus in the living room. "My boy!" she exclaimed, rushing to hug Ethan. Jennifer was an elegant woman of 42, her blonde hair always impeccable, her smile hiding years of tension between career and motherhood. "Mom, you're back! I came to see you, my love. I missed you so much." Marcus stepped back discreetly, but Jennifer called to him. "Marcus, how has Ethan been? Is he doing well?" "Very well, Mrs. Blackwell. Ethan is an exemplary boy." "Mom, can I show you something?" Jennifer looked at her son curiously. "Of course, sweetheart." Ethan then began performing some basic ballet movements adapted for his chair. Jennifer was stunned. "Ethan, what is this? Where did you learn it?" The boy glanced at Marcus, silently asking for approval. "Uncle Marcus taught me. He knows how to dance ballet." Jennifer turned to the bodyguard, surprised. "Really?" "I studied it when I was young, Mrs. Blackwell." Ethan showed interest, and I just adapted some basic exercises. "This is incredible! Ethan, you're really dancing!" For the first time, someone in the family showed genuine enthusiasm for Ethan's progress. The boy was beaming. "Can you show Mom more, Uncle Marcus?" Marcus hesitated, but Jennifer gave an encouraging nod. "Please, I'd love to see." And so Marcus gave a full demonstration. He showed how he'd adapted classical positions, how he worked on musicality with Ethan, how ballet had improved the boy's coordination and self-esteem. Jennifer was moved to tears. "This is wonderful, Ethan. You're so different, so confident. It's because Uncle Marcus taught me I can fly even in a wheelchair." The words struck Jennifer deeply. She stepped closer to Marcus. "How long has this been going on?" "About 2 months, Mrs. Blackwell. And the results?" "Betty can confirm. Ethan's physical and emotional progress has been remarkable." Jennifer was thoughtful for a moment. "Marcus, do you have formal training in dance?" "I do. I studied at Lincoln Center, was a professional dancer for a few years." "And why did you become a bodyguard?" The question touched an old wound, but Marcus answered honestly. "An injury ended my career just as I was starting to make a name for myself. I had to find another way to support my family." Jennifer nodded understandingly. "Does Richard know about this?" "No, ma'am. My past was never relevant to my duties here." "I see. Ethan, do you want to keep learning ballet?" "Yes, it's my favorite thing in the whole world." Jennifer smiled, but Marcus noticed concern in her eyes. "And your father? Does he know about these lessons?" Ethan shook his head. "It's our secret. Dad doesn't have time for this stuff." Jennifer sighed. She knew her husband and his priorities well. "Well, for now, we'll keep it that way. But Ethan, promise me you'll keep up with your regular studies too." "I promise, Mom." That afternoon, Jennifer had a long talk with Betty about Ethan's progress. The nurse confirmed all the benefits of ballet lessons and praised Marcus's dedication. "Mrs. Blackwell, in 30 years of physical therapy, I've rarely seen a child improve so quickly. Ballet brought a body awareness and a joy for life that no medication could ever provide." "And do you think we should tell Richard?" Betty hesitated. "That's a family decision, but I can say that medically speaking, these classes are more beneficial for Ethan than any conventional treatment. Jennifer spent 3 days discreetly observing Marcus and Ethan's classes. She was impressed by the security guard's patience and her son's dedication. It was clear that this activity had sparked a genuine passion in the boy. On the 3rd day, Jennifer made a decision. "Marcus, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Mrs. Blackwell. I want to make these lessons official. I want to hire you as Ethan's private dance instructor." Marcus was speechless. "Mrs. Blackwell, that would be amazing, but... Mr. Blackwell, he needs to approve." Jennifer took a deep breath. "Leave Richard to me. But first, I need to be sure of one thing. Are you willing to officially dedicate yourself to teaching Ethan?" "There's nothing I'd rather do, Mrs. Blackwell." "Then it's settled. I'll talk to my husband tonight." But fate had other plans. That same afternoon, while Jennifer was on the phone handling work matters, Richard came home early. He was stressed about a business merger that wasn't going as planned. When he walked into the living room, he was met with a scene that left him stunned. Ethan performing a full routine while Marcus guided him, with classical music playing loudly. "What the hell is going on here?" Richard roared. Ethan froze mid-movement, his face pale with fright. Marcus turned off the music immediately. "Mr. Blackwell, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Why my son is doing that." The disdain in his voice when he said that cut Ethan like a knife. "Dad, I was just..." "You were doing ballet." Richard spat the words as if they were an insult. "Marcus, have you lost your mind?" "Mr. Blackwell, please let me explain. Ethan showed interest and I just..." "You just what? Thought you had the authority to make decisions about my son's education?" "Dad, please." Ethan tried to intervene, but his voice cracked. "And you, Ethan? How can you waste your time with this nonsense? A boy in your position doing ballet." The words hit like blows. Ethan began to cry, not from physical pain, but from an emotional wound that would scar his soul. "Richard!" Jennifer appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. "What's going on?" "Your question should be what was going on behind my back. Our son doing ballet with the security guard." Jennifer took a deep breath. This wasn't how she planned to broach the subject. "Richard, sit down. We need to talk." "Talk? Jennifer, you knew about this?" "Yes, and I fully support it." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard looked at his wife as if she'd lost her mind. "You supported our son doing ballet?" "I did because I saw the results. Ethan has never been happier, more confident. His lessons with Marcus have transformed his life." "Marcus is fired," Richard declared, "and I want your things out of here right now." "No!" Ethan shouted with a force that surprised everyone. "Dad, you can't do this." "I can and I will, and you're stopping this nonsense immediately." Ethan burst into tears. "Why can't you see me? Why can't you see that dancing makes me happy?" "Because ballet isn't for boys. You need to focus on serious, useful things. Like you," Ethan sobbed. "Always busy, never around. I don't want to be like you." The words hit Richard like a bullet. He looked at his son crying, at his wife with eyes full of disappointment, at Marcus, who remained silent. "Marcus, you have 1 hour to leave this house." And without saying another word, Richard went up to the office and slammed the door. Jennifer ran to comfort Ethan, who was inconsolable. Marcus approached the boy's chair. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I didn't want this to happen." "It's not your fault, Uncle Marcus. It's my dad's. He doesn't understand anything." Jennifer looked at Marcus, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm so sorry. I tried..." "You're not to blame for anything. I knew this might happen. Where will you go?" "I have some friends who can help me until I find another job." Ethan held Marcus's hand. "Will you keep teaching me?" Marcus glanced at Jennifer, who nodded subtly. "We'll figure it out, champ. Somehow we'll keep going." But both knew it would be very difficult. Marcus packed his bags with a broken heart, not for losing the job, but for leaving Ethan in that state. The boy had found his passion, and now he'd have to abandon it because of his father's prejudices. As he was leaving, Margaret intercepted him in the kitchen. "Marcus, I'm so sorry." In 40 years in this house, I've never seen the boy as happy as he's been these past few months. Thank you, Margaret. Take good care of him. Will you stay in touch? I'll try, but it'll be hard. Margaret handed Marcus an envelope. It's this month's pay. Mrs. Jennifer asked me to give it to you. Marcus thanked her and headed for the door. With one last glance back, he saw Ethan at the second-floor window, waving sadly. The following days were terrible for everyone in the Blackwell house. Ethan fell into a deep depression. He refused to leave his room, barely ate, and wouldn't do his physical therapy. Jennifer tried to talk to him, but the boy just repeated that nothing made sense anymore. Richard tried to ignore the situation, burying himself even deeper in work. But it was impossible not to notice the drastic change in his son's behavior. Betty grew alarmed at Ethan's condition. Mrs. Blackwell, I'm worried. Ethan has regressed physically and emotionally. He's lost all motivation. I know, Betty. I'm trying to think of a solution. And Mr. Blackwell? Richard won't budge. He says Ethan needs to get through this phase. A week after Marcus left, Jennifer made a drastic decision. She sought out her husband in his office. Richard, we need to talk seriously. Jennifer, if this is about Ethan and that ballet nonsense, it's exactly about that. Our son is wasting away. He doesn't eat, sleep, or speak. You destroyed the one thing that brought him joy. He'll get over it. He's a child. Richard, look at me, Jennifer said, her voice firm. If you don't fix this, I'm leaving with Ethan. Richard stopped typing and stared at his wife. Are you threatening me? I'm making a promise. I won't stand by and watch our son suffer because of your prejudices. Prejudices? Jennifer, I just want what's best for him. Best according to who? You? Richard? When was the last time you really talked to Ethan? When was the last time you asked what he wants? He's a child. He doesn't know what he wants. He's 9 years old and knows exactly what he wants. He wants to dance. He wants to express himself. He wants to feel special because of his talents, not his limitations. Richard fell silent for a moment. Jennifer, I grew up learning that men do men's things. My father taught me that. Your father lived in a different time, Richard. It's 2024. The world has changed. But what if other kids laugh at him? What if he gets bullied? Jennifer stepped closer to her husband. Richard, Ethan is already suffering. He suffers because he feels alone, because he feels different, because he thinks he's good for nothing. Ballet gave him hope. It gave me purpose. But Jennifer, no buts, Richard. You have two choices. Accept that your son is a special boy with unique talents, or lose your family. The conversation was interrupted by Margaret knocking on the door. Mr. Blackwell, sorry to bother you, but it's about Ethan. What about Ethan? He's asking to speak with you, says it's important. Richard and Jennifer exchanged glances. It was the first time in a week Ethan had shown any desire to talk. They found the boy in the living room, still in his wheelchair, but with an oddly determined posture. Dad, I need to talk to you. Richard sat down, surprised by his son's seriousness. I'm listening, Ethan. I know you don't like ballet. I know you think it's not for boys. But I need you to understand something. The boy took a deep breath before continuing. When I dance, I'm not just the boy in the wheelchair. I'm Ethan, the dancer. I have something special, something that's just mine. Richard felt a tightness in his chest. Ethan, let me finish, Dad. You've always given me everything money can buy. But the one thing I really wanted, the thing that made me happy, you took away from me. The words came with a maturity that stunned his parents. I'm not asking you to like ballet. I'm asking you to like me, the Ethan I am when I dance. Richard felt his eyes well up. For the first time, he was truly listening to his son. If you don't let me dance, you'll have a son who obeys but who'll never be happy. And is that what you want for me? The silence stretched for long minutes. Richard looked at the brave boy he'd raised but barely knew. Ethan, can I ask you something? Of course. Why is dancing so important to you? Ethan smiled for the first time in a week. Because when I dance, I fly. And when I fly, I forget everything bad. I just feel joy. Richard closed his eyes. His son's words echoed in his mind, mixed with memories of his own childhood. when he dreamed of playing piano but was forbidden by his father. "Jennifer," he finally said, "do you have Marcus's number?" Jennifer could hardly believe what she was hearing. "I do." "Call him, tell him I'd like to talk." Ethan shouted with joy and threw himself into his father's arms. For the first time in a long while, Richard hugged his son for real, feeling all the love he'd held back out of fear of showing weakness. 2 hours later, Marcus was back at the mansion. Richard received him in the study, clearly uncomfortable but determined. "Marcus, I want to apologize for how I treated you." "Mr. Blackwell, I understand your position. Any father would be worried." "No, you don't understand. I wasn't worried about Ethan. I was worried about my image, about what people would think." Marcus was surprised by Richard's raw honesty. "My wife made me realize I almost lost my son because of my prejudices. And worse, I almost took away the one thing that truly makes him happy. Ethan is a special boy, Mr. Blackwell. He has an incredible natural talent. That's what you all keep telling me, and I'd like to see it for real." "You mean?" "I mean, I'm offering you your job back, but not as security, as Ethan's dance teacher." Marcus could hardly believe it. "Mr. Blackwell, that's amazing, but..." "There's a but. It'll be a long process. Ethan lost some confidence this week. We'll need to rebuild it." "I understand. And there's something else." Richard hesitated before continuing. "I'd like to watch the lessons, to better understand what my son loves so much." And so began a new chapter in the Blackwell family's life. The first lessons after Marcus's return were emotional. Ethan was thrilled to see his teacher again, but there was also a new uncertainty, a fear that it might all end once more. "Uncle Marcus, my dad won't change his mind, right?" "He won't, Ethan. We talked a lot, and he understood how important this is for you." "And he's really going to watch the classes?" "Yes, but let's take it slow. Your dad is learning to see you in a new way." During the first class Richard attended, the businessman stayed silent at the back of the room. He watched Marcus work patiently with Ethan, adapting each movement, explaining every position with care and professionalism. Even more impressive was seeing the transformation in Ethan when he danced. The boy literally changed, gaining a grace and confidence that transcended his physical condition. After class, Richard approached Marcus. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How do you know how to adapt everything like that? How did you learn to work with Ethan's condition?" "Mr. Blackwell, ballet is about expressing emotions through movement. It doesn't matter if the movement is done standing or sitting. What matters is the intention, the music, the soul you put into it. And Ethan has that?" "Ethan has more natural talent than many dancers I've seen on stage." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "Marcus, can I be honest with you?" "Of course." "I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid Ethan will face prejudice. Afraid people will laugh at him. Afraid I won't be able to protect him." Marcus understood. It was the fear of any father, magnified by their special circumstances. "Mr. Blackwell, the world will always have people ready to judge what's different, but it also has people ready to celebrate what's special. Ethan needs to learn to navigate both." "And what if he gets frustrated? What if he realizes he's not as talented as we think? Then he'll learn a valuable lesson about perseverance and finding joy in the process, not just the result." In the weeks that followed, Richard became a regular observer of the classes. Little by little, he began to understand the language of ballet, the discipline it required, the emotional strength it built. One day, he asked a question that surprised everyone. "Marcus, do you think it's possible? I mean, could an adult learn?" "Absolutely. Why do you ask?" Richard hesitated, clearly embarrassed. "I was thinking, maybe it would be nice if I understood better what Ethan does, so I could talk to him about it." Ethan clapped his hands in delight. "Dad, you want to learn ballet? Well, maybe just some basic moves." And so, completely unexpectedly, Richard Blackwell, a 52-year-old millionaire businessman, began taking ballet lessons with his son. The first attempts were disastrous. Richard was clumsy, rhythmless, completely out of his element, But Ethan was so happy teaching his father some positions that the man persisted. "Dad, relax your shoulder. Ballet needs lightness." "Lightness? Ethan, I'm 6 feet tall and weigh 200 pounds. But Uncle Marcus says lightness comes from within, not body weight." Jennifer watched her husband's attempts with a mix of tenderness and amusement. It was adorable seeing such a serious man trying delicate moves beside his son. "Richard, you're too tense," Marcus observed. "Try breathing with the music." "It's harder than it looks," Richard admitted. "How do you make it look so easy?" "We practice a lot, Dad." "I was bad at first too." "Bad? Ethan, you were never bad. You just needed to learn." Ethan's patience in teaching his father created a bond that had never existed before. They now had a shared interest, a common language. 2 months later, Jennifer made a decision that would surprise the whole family. "Richard, I want to throw Ethan a different kind of birthday party this year." "What do you mean different?" "I want to organize a small recital. Ethan, Marcus, and you can perform for friends and family." Ethan was thrilled, but Richard turned pale. "Jennifer, I can barely do a basic position. It's not about perfection, it's about celebrating progress and showing everyone that our family supports Ethan's dreams." "But what if I make a fool of myself?" "Dad," Ethan interrupted, "you'll never look foolish dancing with me. You'll look like a brave father who learned to love what his son loves." Ethan's wise beyond his years words touched Richard deeply. "All right, let's do this recital." The weeks of preparation were intense. Marcus created a special choreography that included solo moments for Ethan, a father-son dance, and even a last-minute addition when Jennifer decided to join the performance. "If all 3 of you are dancing, so am I," she declared. The entire family was learning ballet, a transformation no one could have predicted. Margaret and Betty were also included, creating a performance that represented a family united by love and music. On the day of the recital, the living room was transformed into a small theater. Family friends attended, Jennifer invited co-workers, and Marcus brought some former colleagues from Lincoln Center. Ethan was nervous but radiant in his specially made costume. "Uncle Marcus, what if I forget the steps?" "Impossible. The dance is already in your heart, Ethan. Just let it out." The performance was magical. Ethan opened with a solo that brought the audience to tears. The grace of his arm movements, his expression of pure joy, his connection to the music, everything was perfect. Then Richard joined his son for their father-son dance. Richard was clearly nervous, but there was something deeply moving about watching him try to keep up with Ethan, creating an imperfect but love-filled harmony. Jennifer stepped in for a special segment where she, Richard, and Ethan danced as a family, each contributing their own unique movements. The finale included the whole extended family, Marcus, Betty, and Margaret, in a choreography celebrating unity, perseverance, and unconditional love. When the music ended, the audience erupted in applause. But the most special moment came when Richard, still catching his breath, knelt before Ethan. "Son, thank you for teaching me that courage isn't about being strong, it's about being true." Ethan hugged his father, and for the first time, Richard felt he truly knew his son. Marcus watched with a full heart. His own journey had found new purpose, no longer the professional dancer he once dreamed of being, but something perhaps more important, the bridge between father and son, the catalyst for a family's transformation. In the months that followed, the Blackwell household changed completely. Ethan continued progressing in ballet, now with his family's full support. Richard cut back on work hours to spend more time with his son. Jennifer cancelled some trips to be present for important moments. But the biggest transformation was in Ethan. The boy who once saw himself only as the kid in the wheelchair, now identified as Ethan the dancer. His confidence blossomed, his personality expanded, and his joy for life filled the whole house. One day, 6 months after the recital, Ethan asked a question no one expected. "Uncle Marcus, do you think other kids like me would want to learn ballet?" "I'm sure they would. Why do you ask?" "I was thinking it'd be nice if we could teach other boys and girls so they can learn to fly too." The idea planted a seed in the whole family's minds. "Ethan," Jennifer said, "are you suggesting we start a dance school? Not just any school. A special school for kids who are different like me." Richard Blackwell looked at his son with pride. "You know this would be a big project, right, Ethan?" "I know, but we could start small with just a few kids, and Uncle Marcus would be the head teacher." Marcus Wilson was moved by the proposal. "Ethan, this would be amazing. An inclusive dance school. And we could help," Richard added. "I have connections, I can secure funding, and I can handle the legal side," offered Jennifer. In less than an hour, what had begun as Ethan's innocent question turned into an ambitious family plan. Over the following months, they worked tirelessly to make the dream a reality. Richard used his business contacts to secure a suitable space. Jennifer handled all the legal paperwork. Marcus developed a specialized curriculum for children with diverse special needs. And Ethan, he became the school's official ambassador, visiting hospitals and rehab centers to invite other kids to discover the joy of dance. The Wings of Dance Academy opened its doors 1 year after Marcus and Ethan first met. On opening day, 20 children with various special conditions performed alongside their families. Ethan, now 10, had become an astonishing dancer. His technique had improved tremendously, but more importantly, he'd found his voice, his identity, his purpose. During the inaugural performance, he stepped onto the makeshift stage and addressed the audience. "A year ago, I was just a sad boy in a wheelchair. Today, I'm Ethan, and I fly. And now, all of you will learn to fly too." The crowd erupted in applause, but no one clapped louder than Richard Blackwell, the businessman who'd learned that his greatest success wasn't in his career, but in helping his son shine. Marcus, now the school's artistic director, watched with tears in his eyes. His injury had ended one career but paved the way for something far greater, teaching dozens of kids the world saw as limited, that dreams have no boundaries. And Jennifer, she'd finally found balance between being a successful professional and a present mother. The school had become a family project, uniting them all in a shared purpose. But the real magic happened daily at the academy, where shy, uncertain children gradually discovered their unique talents, that they could express themselves through dance, that they could indeed fly. Ethan remained the heart of the school, not just as a student, but as a mentor to younger kids. He'd learned that teaching multiplied the joy he'd found. A year after the opening, during a special performance, Ethan danced a piece he'd choreographed himself. It was called Flying High, telling the story of a child who realized their differences weren't limitations, but special wings allowing them to soar in their own way. When the music ended and Ethan took his final bow, the entire audience rose in applause. But amid the celebration, he searched for his father's eyes. Richard was openly crying, unashamed of the tears streaming down his face. He made a motion with his hands as if flying, and Ethan smiled, understanding the silent message perfectly. His father had finally learned to fly too. The end. Now tell us what you thought of this inspiring story of overcoming adversity. Do you believe family love can truly transform prejudices? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like. Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.